spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh, and I'm the guy they call Smoker Broker. Happy Thursday to you. I actually forgot. I don't think we've done a show in a couple weeks, and I'm not even sure I really did the one before then. So I'm so used to doing them on a weekly basis that sometimes I forget where I'm at. So I'm glad to be back. I love to do the show, and it reminds me when I haven't done it in a little while how much I enjoy doing it. So hope everybody's doing well, getting ready to get into the summer. Real estate typically a high-powered month in May and June, July, but we've had high-powered months for months now. So it's really not like there's a summer segregation to when we're going into a better market or leaving a winter market. It's been good for a long time, and it's going to continue to be good for a long time. So definitely a very prosperous real estate market right now. Doesn't change things for the buyers who are out there. It doesn't change the fact that they are still struggling to find the homes that they need and having to compete desperately with other people to get the type of house that they want. So that's still kind of an unpleasant part of the real estate market, and it's not going to change. But considering on the listing side, everything's fantastic. In fact, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the reasons why you should be selling. And it's not the obvious, just because the market's fantastic. There's going to be reasons that we give. And I like this topic today because I've actually been thinking about, just for my own personal client basis, to send something out similar to this. And I was talking to Brent about what type of show we should do. And he mentioned, I'm like, it's good because I planned on already announcing to my client base that I was going to
get out of the real estate business.
What's that?
Get out of the real estate business?
No, that's not what I'm going to do. I think whether that's fortunate or unfortunate for some people, that's going to be a long time. In fact, Dean and I were talking about that last night, that I think that goes for a long time no matter what. Now, my activity in it might be a lot less down the road. But yeah, for right now, yeah, that's a long time out there. So we were talking about my own client base is in there, which for those of you who don't know, I typically are dealing with closer people to me that I've done work with in the past. But right now in the market, I'm helping a little more than I normally do because it's so easy for me to sell them. We don't have to go 30 or 40 days or 2 or 3 months or 6 months like we used to. I mean, there was a time in my career that 6 months was a reasonable time to sell a house. So those of you who are new age, especially since that's a target for our listing audience, that's true. 6 months, I remember where we used to have to tell someone, well, it's probably going to be 6 months. We'll do what we can. If we approach 180 days, we probably need to look at, resetting the market. And, we're talking about whether we, after an hour, are we good or not? So it was interesting when Brent brought the subject up because something I haven't done in a while has been a little bit more active in the client world. And that is because I do run SWR and I have a lot of my attention focused on it. But right now, we're going to actually talk to some of you folks out there that this might actually speak to you. And you might not have looked at it like this, but maybe you should think about selling the house right now. Of course, there's consequences. But if the consequences aren't the ones that are going to affect you, then why are you not doing it? Or maybe the advantage or the result outweighs the consequence. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to talk about. Because some of the situations we're going to discuss are probably not the most pleasant ones. And I think for a lot of people out there that are going through those things, the last thing they're thinking about is, what do I do with my house? In fact, some people might say that's the only thing that's stable in my life is the house. But if they're having problems, things like divorce, distress sales, job loss, God forbid death, financial problems, maybe they haven't looked at the one option that they probably should do, which would be to sell my house. So we're going to talk about that today. And as always, it was funny too. I was telling Brent, I go, I'm not sure that topic. I'm not sure that topic will have enough time. Of course, he was his kind self and said, I don't think that that's possible with you on the show, that there's something that doesn't have enough time. So he's right. That's true. And now that I'm already going through the topic and thinking about it, he's right. It is going to be long. But it's only because I'm structuring it a different way than I had originally planned. I had originally planned we were only going to talk about the groups that we're discussing and why they should do it. But now we're going to talk about those groups in general, what they're going through, which will expand the amount of time we discuss. One other thing in the intro that is just absolutely apparent right now, and again, we're not getting into the conversation of political COVID, what's right, what's wrong, mask, we're doing whatever. The fact remains that the country is at this point making their adjustments and moving on everywhere. And I don't think there's any market that we're practicing right now that we see where the masks are heavily enforced. Almost everybody has gone to, hey, if you're vaccinated, you're vaccinated. In large crowds, you should be doing this, but as we're seeing, most people in large crowds are not doing it, which is indicative of the fact that the country is moving on. Whether you like it or not, whether you believe in it or not, it doesn't matter. It's a fact. Everywhere we go, people are moving on, and that gets us back into some type of normalcy for real estate. We talked all last year that we were certain we would have what's called a new norm. And I have to admit, I don't think that's right anymore. I don't think there is a new norm. I actually think we're getting back to some type of normalcy with a much smarter country on being careful with medical issues and understanding what we need to do when something terrible like that happens. And as bad as COVID was, there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of the fact that there's no doubt we've learned what we can and cannot do and what we should and should not do if something like that ever happens again. And that's a horrible statement to make because it's really hard to say something like that's good, but there have been some goods. There have been. I'm not going to say it like that, but an adjustment definitely was out there that was needed at some point. Whether COVID was the thing that should have pushed it on or not, I don't know, but it did. And we're living it now. The reason I brought that up today, and we haven't talked about COVID in a long time, is because it is evident to me, outside the major travel of airplanes, bus, whatever, train, they still have federal mandates, but everybody else, it's almost back to the way we were to some extent. So anyways, that's a good thing. It helps with jobs. It helps with the housing market. Not that the housing market needs any help, but that's where it's at. As always, I got my buddy Brent over there. He really is the brains behind everything. He's the one that does a lot of the hard work. As lazy as people think I am, I'm involved knees deep in everything, but he does a lot of the stuff that I just can't do, and he's a lot smarter than I am too. So always love him co-hosting with me. He does give the energy that's needed for the show and keeps me in line when I'm missing topics or not doing the exact thing that we had planned on.
Or if your internet craps out.
Yeah, my internet craps out. Yeah, I have better internet here at the house than I do at the office, so that's awkward.
It's funny as I said to Mark.
That's why it seems like it's been so long.
Yeah.
Because the last one we were off the week before, and then the last one I wasn't able to do. So that's right.
Yeah, I told Mark, I was like, that's so good that when I have to take over a show where I wasn't prepared for the topic.
Well, but that's the reason why we do it, because we know we don't have to have planned agenda because we live it day to day, and that's what makes the show so great. Is that when we go through it, and I love doing it live. And that's why I do always tell people that there's a difference between just a podcast and ours is somewhat of a podcast because it's watched live and eventually goes to podcast, but live's better. Live's better because you're getting the real true feelings, you're getting the real honest opinion, and you almost have to have more guts to do it live because there are people that watch, and we don't go back and re-edit our show. Whatever we do, it goes on there. So I like the live, and because I think it generates conversation that we would not have had if we structured it and cut it all out. So always love the line. All right, let's get into the topic. Appreciate everybody too. Our listening audience is typically more on archive people. Most of the people that watch the show do it at their own convenience, which is great. But we did shift to 12:30 this probably for this month, just to help me out a little bit, which is really, we've had the show for a long time at 12 o'clock. It's pretty impressive. All those Thursdays we've stuck at 12 o'clock. So I like that. Even though it's not necessary, I do enjoy that I keep doing there. So we're probably going to push that back onto 12:30 just for the next month or so. Okay, so we're talking about advantages of people who are selling their home. You could think that that's like a stupid thing to say. Like, well, if there's advantages, then what's the big deal? Well, it might depend that it's an advantage that you don't know is out there yet. You might not realize it. There are a lot of people that know the housing market's good, but they don't know how much their house is worth. And they don't know how much money is inside of it. And they've heard via the media, which for once is correct, that people are getting the most they can get for their houses and they're selling way above average. So they hear that, but it doesn't translate to them that, well, maybe I should sell my house then.
No.
One of the biggest roadblocks to that has been the consequence, and it's the obvious one, that we'll sell it quick, but we're not going to be able to find you something probably unless you really overpay for it and have a lot of cash to push somebody else around. So that stops a lot of people that even though they know the obvious, they're like, no, I'm not going to do that, which is fine. Like, I'm one of those people, I think. I'd love to see what the house would sell for, but, Dina and I are like, we don't want to sell our house. We like it. We like where we live, and we don't even think we'd want to replace it with anything else. So for us, it doesn't matter, but you're just kind of like, sure is a lot of money just sitting around, knowing that we can get well above what we normally do. So, but when you start talking about people and their problems, and real estate has that, I think that's a special side of real estate that people just don't understand. We deal with a lot of the personal parts of life because it all rotates around real estate. Now, real estate is the foundation for almost every single thing that's done. Business-wise, personal-wise, life-wise, goal-wise, everything revolves around the home. Mm-hmm. The American dream is, in fact, to be able to purchase a home, which is funny because we talked about that a week or two ago. It's kind of threatened right now because of the way this works, but that's a whole nother show in itself. People have problems daily. All of us do. We're all broke in some type of ways, not financially. We are all broke. Something's wrong with all of us. No, there's nobody perfect. They're not. Now, all of us have something wrong. We all have our own demons that we fight. And in real estate, we are I'm not going to say fortunate because we're not, but we're the ones that deal with it. I always have said for many years, I wish if I could go back, knowing that I was going to run a real estate brokerage, that I had a law degree, that I had a psychiatrist degree, and I had a counseling, whatever they have. I don't even think they call them degrees, but
a certificate of authenticity.
Certificate, yeah. Because those things are used daily. A divorce specialist. Those are
finance,
bankruptcy specialist. Mm-hmm. These are daily conversations. If you run a firm as big as the one Brent and I do, you're going to see these conversations come up. You not only see it with your clients, you see it with your own agents, which is the hardest part. And actually, Brent, that's something Brent is starting to slowly learn, is that at times when he goes through and he catches the side that I wasn't doing by accident, some of the agents talk about some pretty personal, tough things that happened to them. And I'm glad that they reach out to us on it because I guess I'm here as a mentor for that standpoint. But some of those things are tough, and they're not the things that we're specializing in. And it's hard. It's hard to hear them. And they are what's centering in the conversation today. So these are out there. They're all out there. And what we're talking about now is the people that are in certain segments of that, should they consider selling their home? Now, this is important for me today because I'm actually going to send out a message. I literally was so short on time. I want to send one out today, but probably tomorrow, for sure, this weekend, that talks to even acquaintances of mine, my client base. And I can tell you right now, if I'm talking about my client base, that means I've thought about something for a while. And I think it's that important that it goes out because I don't do that very much these days. And if you're new and someone like me is thinking about that, you better damn well be thinking about something similar. And this is where the great part of the show is that we don't hide our stuff. We share it with everybody. We share what's going on. I joke about it all the time. One of the mega agents, Keller Williams, I think it's great. He's a mega agent in the entire world too. But Ben Kinney is famous for, he'll tell you everything he does, but he'll flat out tell you. The reason why I'm telling you is I know damn good well you're not going to do it. So I always love that conversation, and it's true. And I'm of the same belief. That's why I share it. I'm almost daring you to go do it because I think it helps you. So let's talk about the big one first. I think they're all big, but I think this is the one we deal with all the time, and the percentages say the same, and it's with divorce. Brent, how many people do we deal with when it's divorce? If you had to guess, what do you think the percentage is of the amount of people we deal with real estate wise that are going
through a divorce?
Mm-mm.
Or they've already
anything in divorce that's being affected?
Oh,
anything.
Almost half, probably. It's a lot.
That's excessive. And if you look at the percentages of divorces in the country, it's close because I think it is in the 40 percentile range. The ones that actually affect day-to-day real estate, because just because you get divorced doesn't necessarily mean it affects real estate. Some people are actually level-headed and they go through
probably about 20%,
right? Yeah, it is. It's like a 28 to 32% ratio.
Those are rookie numbers, though. We got to bump those up.
Yeah, we've got to work on making sure more people get divorced
after the transaction closes.
Yeah, it reminds me, it's off subject. It reminds me when they talk about lead gen, and there's always someone out there who goes a little too desperate, and their lead gen finds them looking in the obituaries, contacting the people. I know people that do that, and then sometimes you just go too far. So yeah, the divorce thing, hoping for someone or encouraging divorce if you're a real estate agent is probably bad karma if you think you're going to get the sale. I'll give you a little hint too. A lot of times it's someone that you know that's about to go through it, they usually won't use you because they don't want you to know the personal stuff behind it. So yeah, that's right, Brent. And you've dealt with these. I've obviously dealt with more divorces than you have over time. In fact, I would argue that anybody that's been in as long as I have, I don't think they've done as many as I have because I have that old Murphy's Law that sits with me. And I just seem to get the rougher one sometimes. So I've always told people that I really believe that to be true. So you've done them before, though. And we're talking about if it's an advantage to sell. So you have these people who are having problems, right? Yep. What's a common problem in divorce? What's the thing that's usually outside of the children?
Yep.
What's the thing that's usually fought most with?
Well, the house and the retirement funds.
Well, and the second part, yeah, because they both flow together. The funds,
financing,
and then the house, right? So a typical argument revolves around the fact that money is at stake. If the divorce is ugly, which a lot of them are, they're going to go at each other for the money, especially if one spouse works and the other one doesn't. That's a very common problem in this country. Because you get the old, I make the money, but then you have the person that says, that doesn't mean it's not mine either. And this is a common problem with people who go through divorce. And I'm only speaking not as an expert in this material. I'm speaking what I've seen. And I've seen a lot. And there's a lot of deals. If I had to estimate the 4,000 homes I've closed on, I would say that probably 300 to 400 of those have been just horrific divorces. So I can speak from an opinion because I've seen it and I have one. They're not pleasant, and the money is a big deal. They go after each other, and that one thing I just said is very common. That, well, I made it all, but then I raised the kids, and you're like, well, it's mine. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, but you got off on this too.
Yeah, look at Bezos and his wife.
What's that?
Look at Bezos and his wife.
Whose wife?
Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't say, yeah, I was wondering what you were saying there. Yeah. I mean, you get to a point, and make no mistake, this isn't a divorce show. My buddy Christy Stratton down there in Houston, yep. She's does a show on divorce, and it's great. We've had her on before. In fact, I wish I had more time. It's probably time to bring her back on and we continue that conversation. But the finance gets in the way of it, and the courts have been pretty. The courts are pretty. They've set on what's going to happen in a divorce. You can pretty much count on it. If you're getting divorced, they've got it all down what's going to happen unless there's some extraordinary type of things. And it does become bitter, especially if the terms of divorce are bitter, that you have someone complaining about money. And the reason why I keep focusing on money is because that's where I'm going with this. So let's say that you or somebody that you know, anybody, friends, family, you know that they're going through a divorce. I'm not even talking about a bad one. They're just going through one. What about one that's going through a divorce that isn't ugly, but there's going to be a financial shift and it's going to be more difficult because money is not used like it has been for a long time, right? Maybe someone has to start back over with the money they get, and that's going to take a long time. Maybe someone wastes the money. There's tons of things that can happen to it, but the key is the money can be an issue a lot of times in that divorce. So if you're sitting right now and it's you, your friends, or your family that are in that situation, and you know that they have not made decisions on the house yet, or you don't even think they realize how valuable the house is because of all the other problems. And see, that's something that happens too. You know, you start getting into divorce conversations, you start really pushing back on, hey, we want this to be through, we want this to be done, and I need to know where I can get the most money out of it, but you might block it. That's probably the last thing on your mind is how much money's in the house. You're looking at all these accounts you have, if you have any, and you're looking at how the kids are affected, which is by far the most important. You just kind of forget, well, hang on for a second. House is worth a lot of money right now. And we've been in it for 7 or 8 years, so there's already equity in that too. I don't think a lot of people right now understand how much is in there. And I can say that because every day when we negotiate a contract, we see someone who literally is getting 30 to 50 to 100K over what they thought. And what they thought was already good. Brent, have we not seen it in negotiations? What have you been seeing with the ones you've reviewed? Are those things not coming in higher?
Yeah,
higher
they are coming in higher.
Expected.
Oh, for sure. I just did a listing presentation, like a second half of one. I did one at the end of last year. And I told them, hey, we're going to go 100,000 higher than what I told you the last time, and very pleasantly surprised.
I just took
rubber strokes out.
Gatorade and it went straight down the wrong pipe.
All right. So back to Cat Daddy Radio.
So you have all that in there. The message today, and I'm not telling you to go stalk your divorced friends and contacts. What I'm saying is if you've been made part of that conversation because you are friends or family. Notice how I didn't say strangers. I didn't say you can start running ads for strangers. Although, I don't know, maybe you could. I'm telling you right now, you should go out and reach out to those people and say, hey, look, I know this is the last thing on your mind, but just so you know, I wouldn't mind doing a comp for the house to let you guys know how much is in it, because that might help you in some of the decisions. because I truly believe that some people don't know how much is in there. And I would even go as far as to suggest that we've seen some people that have got 100K more than they thought. That's usually a big number for some people. Others, it's nothing. For some people, it is. And they hear that, and it makes them listen a little more carefully. Because at first they were like, well, we have probably about 50, 60K in the house. And now we're talking about when you have 50, 60K, we think you might have 100K on top of it. Okay? So that might persuade somebody who's in that situation. So if you have those people out there, I'm actually telling you right now, maybe you should market to them in a way, again, if it's someone you know, and even if it isn't someone, even if these people that you know are going through it, you don't know they're not going through it. So what I'm telling you, this is the real takeaway here, is that you probably should have some type of marketing you're sending out with the very polite, hey, if this is by chance happening, maybe you should have a private conversation with me to see what your options are. Okay?
You say it to them at dinner when they're in the middle of a fight?
Do what in the middle of
when
dinner?
You're at the dinner, when they're having a fight, do you just interrupt them and be like, hey, so it looks like you guys are heading down this path?
Or when you're walking into the restaurant and hear someone arguing, or you can see those people that are obviously upset.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
That's a great way to put.
Here's my
I
card.
noticed that you guys weren't talking the entire dinner. If you need any help, I never thought about that. That's possible. Think about it. You can tell the people that don't like each other. You can see it when they're in there. They're just there by force. I wonder what would happen if you did that. I'm sure some bad things would happen. Anyways, very funny. All right, let's talk about another one. Let's talk about someone who this is probably the bigger one more than divorce. Let's talk about the person that's having financial issues. Financial issues stem from lots of things. Many things. Job wasn't good enough, not making enough money. Maybe both spouses don't work. Maybe one spouse spends too much. Maybe both spouses spend too much. Maybe there's some personal things in their life with the other segments that we're talking about, like a divorce or something else from another part of the friend. Maybe they're taking care of a parent or a loved one, and there's financial strain there. Okay? Maybe they're just helping somebody out. All right? There's a lot of things that put people into a financial situation that they weren't prepared for. Brent, what do you think the average person in talking the entire country workforce? So you're talking about the guy that bags groceries to the guy that's a CEO somewhere. What do you think the amount of check? How quick do they live? Is it week to week?
They're paycheck to paycheck for sure. No, I mean it's paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, and it literally is a majority of the country.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not 30%. The majority of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. So if anything disturbs that, especially like something like COVID, small businesses, especially small businesses, think about this past year. How many small businesses had to let a family-run business that's been done for 50 years, and some of the employees have been there for 20 years, and they had to let them go, which, God, that's so sucks. Mm-hmm. It happens so many times. But that person, you think at some point after they've been there for 20 years, there's a level of comfort that nothing can happen, right? And then you throw a kink in there, and someone who already was not being financially responsible, and now they're in a lot of trouble. The first run to security of any type of financial trouble is you run your credit up. Everything goes on credit card, and you just deal with that later. And most people never deal with it later, so it just gets worse and worse and worse. Talk about the true American way, right? So that one's out there. Those people right now, if you're in that situation, or if you can see the writing on the wall, and you know it's possibly coming with the stuff that you have out there, maybe you're already behind on certain things. I think I'm talking probably more to you than a lot of the people out there, because maybe it's you who probably needs to consider, even if it means that you have to get rid of a house you love. Maybe that's something that's necessary right now. And maybe that's the sacrifice that has to be made if you have to go live in an apartment because you can't find a dwelling that you like. Maybe that's what needs to be done. Is it better to have $70,000, $80,000 worth of credit card debt, car loans, and God knows what else you have out there, and there's $150,000 equity in the home? I mean, I think at some point you need to do the math and look at how much you're paying in interest on all the debt and say, maybe I need to do this. Maybe I haven't thought about what's the easiest way out. And the reason why we started talking about this show today is because this is almost a once in a lifetime thing. Our show goes from coast to coast, and we do have people that watch from other states. Primarily our listeners in the state of Texas. But in Texas, I don't think we're going to have a repeat of this. And when I say this, I mean where we go years of being very steady. And then it just goes up, and then it stays up. And then every person that's been steady is just making tons extra on their house. This could be a once in a lifetime thing.
Mm-hmm. It's like a get it out of jail free card right now for everybody.
That's a perfect example. It's like a get out of, and that, you know, if I had to have titled this show, that's what I would have titled it. It's almost like a get out of jail free card. It's being given to everyone out there that has a home that has lived in it for a little while, because all of them have equity beyond what they think. Some of them don't know. They don't have a clue. Some of them are, I don't want to sell my house. But if you look at it from a financial perspective and a decision point making perspective, maybe that is what you should be doing. And that's the person we're reaching out to today. We're reaching out to that person saying, have you at least discussed it? Because you might just want to.
So the number one question I get then is, well, where am I going to go?
And as unpleasant as this conversation can be, we labeled this topic the advantages of selling. Of course, that means there's disadvantages to it. And the greatest disadvantage is exactly what Brent just said. Where am I going to go? And the reason why I followed that up with a very non-optimistic view is I think I'm kind of hinting at, if you're having to do this because of those other situations, it's time to pay the piper. And it's not going to be cheap, and it's going to be sacrifice. And I think the answer to that question is the blunt one. So what's worse? You continuing to get in debt? God forbid the housing market goes down, which it won't for a while. But if it did, I mean, you got nothing then. Right now, you still have something. You still have some value. So why are you messing around with that? Okay, so that's another takeaway from the show too. That's a great analogy, Brent, about the get out of jail free card, because it, for some people it is. And we're talking to the people out here who have general problems, real problems, and they want to fix them. But unfortunately, in that group, you have the irresponsible people that they probably don't deserve this, yet there they are. There they are, and they are taking advantage of it. Taking advantage of stimuluses, not working because they're getting stimulus, other government programs, other things. That person's in here too, and they could benefit as well if they actually own a home. All right, so those people are in there as well. Let's see, divorce. Let's talk about someone who is in a distressed type of sales situation. Now, when we say that, we're not so much. Well, I guess we can. I guess we can break that into two conversations. We can look at it from someone who's actually worried about foreclosure, and then we can also look at it from someone who has problems with their house that are way too expensive to fix, and they don't have the cash for it. Okay, they're distressed situations either way. a lot of this kind of flows for the same conversation, but the point of the show today was to alert you to these people. Because once again, any friends, any family that you know are going through this, you're the real estate expert. Maybe you should be talking to them and helping them put the puzzle together. Obviously, if you're looking at a foreclosure, which should be horrifically rare right now because values are so high, which I still see them, and I'm like, how in the hell? Which I will tell you, most of the people that are in there are the ones we were talking about that have literally buried themselves, and God knows what they've done, barred against the house, and they're still there, But someone who legitimately had something, maybe a job loss 6 months ago, and they just thought they could control it better. Maybe they're at the situation now where they're like, hey, I'm going to lose this. I need to do something. Common sense should dictate to you if the house has any equity at all, you get rid of it before it even comes close to some type of foreclosure. Hell, I would be willing to bet that even if you're behind right now, you could go to your bank and say, hey, look, I know I can get it sold and at this amount. So just back off for a second and I'll get this done. Now, I can tell you if I was in that situation, that's what I would do. I'd go to the bank and I'd cut a deal with them. I'd be like, you don't think that house is going to sell? Who's the idiot that wants to sign off on this house isn't going to sell? So I think that person needs to start making some inquiries about real estate. The person, this happens a lot. Let's say they just found out that they have foundation issues and they have to do foundation repair. And that foundation repair is one of the bigger ones. It's like 20 or 30K and they don't have it. And now they're looking at, and I'm talking about foundation issue that's forcing a repair. That's something like there's a leak or something and it has to be fixed. Or termites that have caused a lot of damage. Those people, they probably should consider whether the house goes on the market. And here's something that has changed because of the market that we're in. Normally, those are things that they want the seller. It's expected that they have to repair it before the buyer comes in. But right now, the housing market's so tight, you'll have someone come in and go, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Our listings, when we do our listing presentations and our seller tells us they're going to go do this and going to do that, I'm like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. They go, it looks horrible. I go, I know. I go, and someone's probably going to have no problem fixing it if they get this house. So you're in a different situation. If you're in a bad situation and you know that you can sell that house and make a lot of that go away, that's something you should consider. Everyone out there knows someone who is going through a rough time with their house. I can think of 5 right off the top of my head, without even sitting and concentrating, that are in this type of issue. So they're out there. That's the point of today. And the takeaway from today is you need to go start finding those people. You've been for months now, because we told you to, marketing that you should be selling your house. We've told you to really focus on listings and only listings. But we haven't told you the type of person that maybe you should go to. Notice that my tone is very respectful too. I'm not bashing any of these people. I'm not sitting there saying tough shit for you or whatever.
That's all fair.
Actually, what's that?
That's all fair. You say that.
Mm-hmm. Subliminal. But the thought process becomes, we know them. Why aren't we talking to them? Like even my guys right now. My guys watch the show. I make them. When you watch this on archive, why are you not doing that? Well, why are you not asking those people you know that are having similarities to these types of situations? Why haven't you had that conversation? I mean, what the hell are you doing? Now, my guys know I'm joking. I don't ever make them do anything. But the ones that want to do well, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you doing that? Now, my guys will answer quickly because you hadn't told me to yet. So let this be the official, you should be doing it. But I shouldn't have to always tell everything. That's a common sense thing. Funny, though, even for common sense, which I like to think I do very well with that, it just crossed my mind a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I don't think we've linked those. I'm sitting there blabbing about the market, but we haven't talked about the people that we probably should actually discuss. or talk with. Okay, we're going to have one more topic. Before we do that, I always like to thank our sponsors. We're very fortunate to have very good vendors that sponsor the show. Even though this show it's not some massive, media conglomerate, it's a very effective one. And it gets our message across to a lot of people. And a lot of people who are in real estate do, in fact, watch the show. So for vendors that focus in dealing with either real estate people or the families that they put in place, this is a very good place to advertise, because you will have anywhere from 300 to 600 people on an average watching some of the shows, depending on the topic and how interesting it was for them. And every one of them, sees that. And they know our credibility. And they're like, well, if they use them, then that can't be a very bad thing. And that's a true statement. So, Brent, go ahead and talk about our two sponsors out there.
Alrighty, Mr. Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections is our go-to home inspector. We, of course, always give our clients a number of inspectors to choose from, but Martin is the inspector we prefer. He is always on time or early, fishes in a timely manner, gets the report to you the same day, and all reports are color-coded, red for serious issues and blue for minor things to look at. You can always book him at bpginspections.com or reach him at 817-401-3240. And our next is Greg Holdberg with Liberator Health Insurance. Your simple solution to affordable healthcare is here. Join the Liberator movement and take control of your healthcare. Customize your healthcare plan to fit your healthcare and budget needs. Use any doctor or hospital without a penalty, in or out of network. Teledoc is included in all plans, no annual deductibles, and no copay. The Liberator deal of the week, a 29-year-old man that uses tobacco got great coverage for $135 a month. I wonder if they have something for a guy that uses PCP. As an independent agency, Liberator is committed to transforming healthcare in Texas through innovative healthcare plans that are affordable and rich in benefits. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker, at 214-886-4688, or visit them at liberatorhealthinsurance.com.
Yeah, not only good vendors, but good people. Most of the vendors we have are people that we actually get along with as well. They're not just great business people, they're good people in general. So for us, that makes it a lot easier. All right, last one. So, and we've actually talked about this one. I think this one's easier, but how do I say that politely? I think these people are more set in their ways, and they're just not so sure that that's something they want to even go through the trouble with. And I'm talking about those who are retired.
Yep.
The retirees right now, most of them are well aware that their house is worth a lot of money. They've been pummeled with all the marketing and stuff like that. But I don't think that many people have probably sat with them and said, hey, look, what's the plan? And this house is like 3,000 square feet, and it's just you two, and you're doing great right now. And this is the point I'm making. These are people that they're like, well, why would I do that now? I'm like, I'm not saying now. I'm saying, where are you going to be at in another 4 or 5 years? And at that point, do we think that we have the market like we do now? And if that's the case, which a lot of us don't think we have the market that we do now, then that would suggest to us that they should maybe take advantage of it earlier, even though it might be 2 or 3 years before they plan on doing something. And I don't think those people have had that conversation a lot yet. I don't think somebody's reached out and said, hey, I want to run this past you, because I know you guys have been talking about, maybe moving to Breckenridge in about 4 or 5 years, or you've actually said you're moving to Breckenridge in, 4 or 5 years, and that, and we all know somebody who's already done that or said that. And maybe we should be saying, I'm not so sure I'd wait. And it's not like you guys have just y'all and this dog over here. It's not like you can't go into an apartment, hell, a nice one, especially with the money you're going to make selling this, and benefit greatly for something you were already going to do. The only difference is this is a guarantee almost in this market. It might not be so much of a guarantee 4 or 5 years from now. I mean, y'all, any finance moron will tell you that our eyes are glued on inflation. We do have a robust economy, but it can't stay like that all the time.
Nope.
And at some point, something breaks. So it can't keep up. It's going to go for a while, but it can't keep that pressure. You can't have people borrowing money almost for free for that long. At some point, it just doesn't work. So that conversation probably isn't a bad one with a retiree. And a lot of your retirees could be your parents, you know? And that's something that should be discussed. I think it's time for once that you actually have a sincere conversation with your parents. Funny how much you do real estate. And I bet if you sat there and thought about it right now, you can't recall the last time you had a real estate conversation with your parents. Because they know you do it. You know they know you do it. So why should you talk about it? And they might have more questions than anybody.
We should get this show sponsored by a nursing home.
I know my dad, you know, we talk occasionally, and when I say occasionally, throughout the month. And it's usually about something general, but I know if I spend a little more time with him, he'll fire off. So what's going on with and I think my dad is pretty average that way. And I would think there's a lot of people that have that same thing on their mind. So if it's on their mind, why aren't we talking to them about it?
Right.
Why have we not talked to our parents? Why have we not explained to them what's happening? Why have we not told them, hey, do you realize whose plans do you know better right now?
Because they're going to want us to do it for free.
But, yeah, I'm sorry. Hold
That's
on.
why.
I just thought about something. You're right. This might be counterproductive.
But can we have open houses?
That's right. Most of the time we do our families for free. So what are we doing there? That's good. Yeah. You know, I'm always very generous with family and closer friends. You know, I'll give a lot of stuff away. But lately, I'm kind of getting of the opinion, if I sell their house, I'm like, you sure are making a lot of money, man. There ain't no reason for you to have to be discounting this when we do it just because we want you to have more money, but you're already making a lot, you know? And yeah, I've told you, I've joked with a lot of friends recently that I'll tell them, I go, hey, we're already pricing it high. If it sells above, I'm taking tips. So, I mean, you almost get to where it's kind of hard to be as giving these days with it because they're just making so much money. So
I'm just not giving it all.
Parents. What's that?
Yes, I'm just not giving it all. I charge everyone.
So I think it's something that is a conversation piece in there. You know, I love the way this our shows always tend to work out very well because we do understand the material better than most of the people out there. And that's not from an arrogant standpoint. It's from a long-time practice standpoint in the backgrounds that we have. But one thing I do enjoy is when we set a topic like that up and we don't necessarily go through the breaks of it and it comes through as well organized as it would have been if I had spent 5 hours planning it. I enjoy that because that means to me, and it verifies to me, that that's something that's probably pretty important and that we should be doing. And just so you know, I'm just sharing the thoughts. I told you at the beginning of the show that this was something I was interested in because I was actually prepared to do it. Now that I've gone through the show and I've actually organized it in my head the way I see it, it's actually making it easier for me right now to start going to those people and saying those very things. So even for me, sometimes it helps to talk through it. And the fact that that went that well organized and it made sense on talking to each of those people, that's probably really good advice for you to end this show with, that maybe you should start taking some shots at some of those people, because I've got to believe that there's some business. And remember, we are looking at doing everything we can to pick up listings. You know, if you don't think this particular episode helped you with that, this has got to be something more out of the box than you've been hearing on a regular basis. This should be a big help. So I encourage you, if you're an agent and you like that type of stuff, you should pass it on to your friends. Say, hey, you should have watched this one. If you're a team lead or a manager or something, this might be a good show to say, hey, look, y'all should have watched that episode today. There's a lot of good stuff on what they talked about, and we agree. We should be talking to those people. So this show, I thought its content was a little stronger than I actually originally thought it would be. and I ended up coming out really good. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I always thank Brent for being there. You know, he's just in case anything terrible goes wrong, and his comments on the side always help, and it drives the conversation. So thanks for making that time. Hope everybody has a great week. Continue to jump into the summer. Keep selling. Keep doing everything you need to do to maximize your real estate experience. And we will see you guys next week.